Way back when, in the old days, the majority of people had the Christ consciousness in their hearts, and there were only a few bad guys. But in today's world, there are a few good guys, those with Christ consciousness in their heart's thought process, and a lot of bad guys. So what happened? What was the difference? What changed everything? Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, took what Sigmund Freud decided, or what he discovered in psychoanalysis, and used that as a tool to, first of all, create hunger, ignite it when they feel it needs to be ignited, and maintained. And it's become into one constant stream of that kind of a spiritual / emotional infection. What does the hunger do? In the advertising world, this is the guy who started advertising, and how to penetrate the heart's thought of the Christ consciousness, which is intellect and wisdom as one element, wisdom of the good. That's all it is, because that brings fairness. It recreates a greater knowing of the original truth that we first experienced. That's what intellectual wisdom does. It finds that light and logic that defines the first thought of knowing truth, and then the emotional response from that. Understanding something cognitively that has no emotional response is something is in the moment programming that we don't take with us and recall from as knowledge base of self, which those memories and emotional memories, both living and spiritually dead, in a lot of people, most people nowadays, but still living memories. And it's very interesting how that takes place. The subconscious recognizes what the conscious mind experiences, and then understands. The subconscious sees that, and then looks to the emotional memories that we have of knowledge in our knowledge base to figure out this is the living computer. It figures out from which experience we need that experience and its learning and its reaction to, and then apply that to the now. And that happens in like a split second. It happens so fast, I don't know what number that is. So we're available to deal with moment right now, whether it being a good thing or a dangerous thing. It doesn't matter. That's what the subconscious does. The subconscious doesn't care what is in the best interest. All it knows how to do is recall from memory. Hey, I see that you're seeing this. It tells the person that, and then it recalls the needed memory that what itself thinks is needed. It has limited understanding of what is needed. Only human will can do that, and a person finds out how you do that through the Christ consciousness, through the intellectual wisdom of self, which is needed for that. The thing that's needed for that is the human will, willing to accept the emotional truth of the self. Then you have your Christ consciousness. If you're too afraid of that, then you're separated from that. That means separation. What separation means is intellect and wisdom being separated. Truth in its understanding does not get separated. Our intellectual wisdom does. So we see a truth and we have an immediate understanding. Okay, we evaluate in a second. That doesn't lie to us. It's no lie, but it doesn't get separated. And then when there's an emotional response that's directly connected to a truth of self, and we become afraid of that, and we pretend it's not there, or we deny it, or we lie about it. self-protection behaviors that we learn in childhood, early childhood, from the rejection model of being parented. So, what was my point? I forgot. Edward Bernays, fuck. That fucking guy. So, yeah, so his first triumph, and he bragged about all these as accomplishments all his life. And you can, it's still on YouTube now, those old films. But he, one of the reasons women were looked down on, but one of those reasons was because women back then were sacred, and they didn't have the cognitive skills that the males did, so males thought they were better than that, I guess, but they still regarded women as the source of the life source, or duplication of the life source, duplicating her. Like, that's the spiritual God stuff. In today's world, we see women as what? Tits, ass, and cunt. Why? Obvious why. I hope it's obvious, but it all began way back when, and I don't care they didn't know, way back when this guy told the cigarette manufacturers not to call them cigarettes to women, but torches of freedom, and that felt empowering to women back then, because they were saying, hey, screaming equality, but men were saying, fuck off, you're a woman, but we still love you and need you. So that took off. It felt like it was strengthening the position of a woman, and that has evolved itself into major things that women have done over the years and have felt even more powerful. But there's other, and the whole thing was to sell cigarettes, a substance that causes death. And it wasn't until the private world, you and me world, found out that they were deadly. How long did the cigarette manufacturers know this? A long time. Longer than we knew. Anyway, I forgot. Anyway, Torches of Freedom, they realized right then and there that you could talk specifically and indirectly to a person's Christ consciousness, where it hooks back up and you start thinking in terms of truth. Remember, the living computer doesn't know what's right and wrong, good or bad. It just listens to the heart of the human will. And when our hearts, just like children of human will, feel empowered or strengthened, or feel hope or inspiration, then we trust naturally. That spirit of trust is the only element, spiritual, non-physical element, that connects two people as one thing. When we're both speaking the truth to each other, we then trust each other. When I'm lying and you're telling the truth, you feel that shit, and you don't trust me. I don't care if you admit it to yourself or out loud to me. We both know how trust works. Forgot my point. Reconnecting to Christ consciousness, our intellectual wisdom. I spent 25 years looking for pain relief from my early childhood programming. That's probably different from a lot of you, and not as bad as a lot of others, if you know what I mean. I'm not going to get into that, but I went through what I go through. Thousands of different things that didn't work, personal development. And then I took this life skills course. And what that did, it didn't do nothing for the unresolved pain that was lingering and causing the emotional darkness in myself. But what it did do is allow me to react differently to what that pain told me in the moment, the potential fear of loss. And I was reacting to the fear of loss and not to the moment with the other person. So, what happened? I learned how to react differently, use communication skill, and function effectively with others. When I couldn't, I had anger issues. Obvious. Well, to me it's obvious, but real bad ones too. It was I couldn't communicate with others. Nobody ever felt safe with me because of my anger. But anyway, my point is, I learned a different way to express myself, and it was good. And like that by itself doesn't cure anything. It just helps you react differently to the unresolved pain, where you're not causing people misery, because where I'm not causing others misery. Because when I'm afraid, I get like that. I used to get like that, all fucked up like that, and then cause destruction in my relationships. And always having to go back and try to mend those relationships, because I realized, I didn't know why or how or what, but I realized I fucked things up and made a mess out of it. Okay, so my point is, I learned a way to effectively react to my unresolved shit in a different way that promoted relationships, that promoted communication in relationship, but if it got too deep, I was out of there, because I'm still in unresolved pain. What do you do with that? Well, I found a way to remove it. A very specific set of meditations you do every morning, and if you can do more, then do that every morning, and at nighttime too, to leave those last thoughts of the meditation in your heart's thought processing it like the living computer it does. When you know how you punch shit into your laptop and you're finished punching shit in, but the computer's still busy working shit out? That's how our bodies work also, but it's done on emotional levels with the elements of truth, and computers don't have that. We do. We're a living computer. As for the first humans, they were actually Neanderthals, and we didn't evolve from them. There was an intervention after the incomplete Son of God wanted to make humans, and did, to worship him as a god. His incompleteness made him needy. So he needed to feel loved, and he went to all kinds of... Anyway, he's the Big Bang guy. He's the one who put it all into unthinking. Maybe it was whatever. Anyway, it's all written down. Jesus, like keysofknowledge.com. It was channeled. That shit got channeled. It's none of us. And so the best he could do was Neanderthals, and then he got cut off from being the God influence. God influence to us is truth and logic. His Son's influence to us is intellectual wisdom. He didn't have any of that. He had truth and emotional response and limited cognitive ability to work that shit out. And we're duplicates of that. We have to evolve from that, because we were made that way, and it was genetically programmed that way. So we're evolving from that, and we're going to do it. We're all going to do it. The people you hate and love to hate are going to do it too. And if you got a problem with that with God, he's gonna see that as a darkness. And because it's an emotional darkness. Your unresolved pain forms hate, forms anger, anger turns into hate, hate turns into contempt. After that, it's evil. If you didn't know that, you do now. So those who think they are going to go hold Hitler accountable and not let him into heaven are the ones with the emotional darkness that is acting from anger and contempt, the wisdom of those two things. So there's some pretty serious shit to deal with there. And honestly, you can't deal with that kind of thing if you're unresolved. It's too impossible, because it connects with the unresolved emotion. You go into fight or flee mode. For us, that's emotional self-protection. When there's no physical threat and we're just talking, like husband and wives do this, children and fathers and mothers do this. We avoid each other. We go emotional self-protect because we're too terrified, not necessarily through the rejection model of being parented, but what that pedophile machine brings into your living room from the Edward Bernays guys who recognize ways of speaking directly to the unresolved needs and hunger in a person to then create another hunger from what they're peddling. And that just makes us happy in the moment. We don't really recognize that we're setting aside the unresolved shit, paying attention to this stuff that's being advertised on the pedophile machine, and this is only a distraction from what's left unresolved that comes back after the distraction wears off. Drug addicts and alcoholics experience that same thing when in their addictions. That is being targeted in us when you Kraft dinner is being advertised, or toilet paper, and speaking directly to our intellectual, emotional needs and our wisdom. Meeting with intellect, and then intellect figures out wisdom. And when the two figure that shit out, we form the idea. The idea we act on. And whatever wisdom we chose to calculate heart's thought with to come to that conclusion in a logic, that spirit is projected through the human behavior. The first human behavior is inside heart's thought process, because there's more than one wisdom. There's two wisdoms and one intellect. Each wisdom wanting to hook up with intellect and become its woman. Fuck me. Fuck me. Okay, I'm gonna go.